My CEO fired me to streamline the cap table for the $330 million sale. During the signing, I got a text from our CTO. The buyer's lawyer found your name on the core IP agreement. The CEO is stress vomiting into a ficus tree. Call me. I knew something was off when he offered me coffee. This man, who once asked me if Java was a brand of espresso, had never so much as held the door open for me in 10 years. Now he's ushering me into his corner office like we're old college roommates and not the man who took my designs and stapled his name to them. Hey buddy, he grinned, the kind of grin that makes your stomach tense before your brain catches up. Appreciate you coming in on such short notice. He says this like I wasn't summoned by a calendar invite titled Strategic Alignment and Cap Optimization, which is startup code for we're cutting someone loose and pretending it's for grown-up reasons. Then he drops it. We're streamlining the cap table ahead of the sale. There it is, cold, slick, delivered with that fake business school compassion tone like he's reading it off a napkin. He doesn't even blink. Translation: screwing you out of the $330 million payday because you're not shiny enough to impress the buyers. I swallow the bile rising up like old cafeteria chili. Hope you've got the paperwork airtight. I say, flat, no emotion. Like I'm commenting on the weather. He gives me that sales guy smirk like he's already rehearsed how he'll spin this to the press. Slides a manila folder across the table like he's handing me a birthday card out of professional death sentence. It's thin, which somehow makes it worse. No ceremony, no build-up. Just the cold whisper of paper on wood and a silent middle finger inside. I don't open it. Not yet. I look him in the eye the way you look at someone who just broke something valuable but doesn't know how expensive it was. Then I stand up. Calm. Controlled. No yelling. No dramatic speeches. Just a small nod and a thanks for the clarity. Now listen. Before we go any further, if you're one of the 97% listening to stories like this and haven't subscribed yet, hit that follow button. It takes a second and I swear it keeps this whole wild operation running. And throw us a like if you've ever wanted to see someone choke on their own corporate jargon. Trust me, it helps more than you think. Back in the hallway, no one meets my eyes. A couple of head nods, a few shoulder squeezes. No one says anything real. I'm already a ghost. You don't speak to ghosts in this building unless you want to join them. I walk out the front door without looking back. No box of belongings. No teary-eyed goodbye montage. Just my keys, my phone, and that folder burning a hole in my hand. But here's what they forgot. I built the system they're selling. The servers still run on my codebase. Legal architecture was written on my kitchen table back when we were eating cup noodles and praying for seed funding. I wasn't just an employee. I was the blueprint. I get home, sit down at my desk. Open the folder, NDA, severance. Some vaguely worded nonsense about maintaining mutual respect during public transitions. No mention of my equity. No mention of the IP clause. I start flipping through my old files. Just curiosity at first. Then I find it. Something I hadn't looked at in years. Something I wrote myself, in legalese thick enough to choke a paralegal. Something with my name on it. Alone. And just like that, the burn in my chest turns into something else entirely. Not rage. Not yet. Leverage. You ever been in a room where everyone pretends they don't know you're the body in the casket? That was my last day. I walked out with my spine straight, head high, shaking hands with people who suddenly discovered their shoes were fascinating. HR gave me that tight, too cheerful smile, like maybe if she smiled hard enough it would erase the smell of betrayal hanging in the air. No box of office junk. No send-off sheet cake with good luck, written in passive-aggressive frosting. Just silence. Broken by a printer jam in the corner and someone pretending to be on a call. I took the elevator alone. Slow descent. All floors down to the lobby. And it felt like each one was peeling away another layer of delusion. When those doors opened, I stepped out lighter, yes, but also dangerous. Outside, the air had that early spring bite, the kind that makes your eyes water even if you're not crying. I sat in my car, not starting it. Just reading. That final NDA in my lap looked like a standard boilerplate, no disparagement. Company property remains theirs. Blah, blah. I didn't skim. Oh, no. I read it like it was scripture. Line by line. Clause by clause. If there was going to be a trapdoor, I'd find it before they did. And then I saw it, tucked in toward the end like a forgotten curse in a fairy tale. Section 11. Exceptions and exclusions. Subsection B. Any previously executed agreements concerning intellectual property rights remain in full effect unless explicitly superseded in writing. Bingo. Meant my original IP agreement, the one I drafted in the early days when we were all too broke to afford a real lawyer, was still binding. Still alive. Still mine. I didn't grin. Not yet. But the corner of my mouth twitched in a way I hadn't felt since the series of funding round hit and we realized we could stop eating canned beans. I drove home on autopilot. Ordered Thai food. Sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a folder of old docs, poring over every contract, every signed napkin scribble we'd called a term sheet back in the day. At 10:13 p.m., I called my lawyer. Hey, I said casually, mind helping me keep my ducks in a row? He knew that tone. The same one I used when a rival tried to clone our back-end systems back in 2017. Calm, lethal. Ice in my veins. You thinking lawsuit? Nah, I said. Not yet. Just want to be ready in case someone tries to sell a car without realizing I still got the title. He laughed once. Short and sharp. Send everything. I'll run a comb through it. I did. Every file. Every receipt. Every document that had my name on it from day one. By midnight, I had 3 separate folders sorted. What they think they control. What I actually own. What could make their shiny $330 million sale feel like a hand grenade mid-handshake? I didn't drink that night. No rage-chugging whiskey. No vindictive plotting on a bar napkin. Instead, I printed out the IP agreement. Signed by yours truly. Dated. Scanned. Watermarked. I placed it gently on my nightstand like a loaded gun. Let them keep their smug boardroom smiles and congratulatory emails. Let them raise glasses to strategic efficiency. I wouldn't raise my voice. I'd raise the stakes. The deal hit TechCrunch like a champagne cork to the eye. Midwest saw darling set for $330 million acquisition. No mention of me, of course. Just a grainy photo of the CEO in a blazer 2 sizes too tight. Grinning like a kid who just farted in church and gotten away with it. Suddenly, the internet was buzzing. My inbox lit up like a Christmas tree with "Yo, did you see this? And WTF they didn't mention you? And you okay?" Subject lines from people who hadn't spoken to me since the office Christmas party in 2019 when I accidentally set the fondue fountain on fire. Long story. Good story. Different kind of story. And buried beneath all that faux concern were the nervous messages. And from a dev I mentored. Rumor is the buyer's doing deep due diligence. CEO stressing. Another from an old PM. They're asking for old docs. Like real old. You ever signed something IP related way back? I played dumb. Not that I recall. Good luck with the sale though. Outwardly, I was calm. Detached zen. Inwardly, I was a crocodile under the waterline grinning with teeth no one could see. Because the cracks were starting to show. Junior engineer forwarded me a screenshot. An internal Slack message from one of the execs. Anyone know who has the original 2014 platform IP chain? Legal needs names now. Names. Plural. Which was hilarious considering there was only one. Mine. So I kept my mouth shut. Ate takeout. Watered my plants. Did laundry with the radio on and that little tingle in my spine that said, "They're scrambling," every now and then. Catch myself chuckling alone at the kitchen table. Not loud, just a little exhale of disbelief at how fast a company can gut its own lungs and still try to run a marathon. Let 'em sweat. I wasn't coming back. I didn't want my desk or my title or some PR-crafted apology with words like misunderstanding and miscommunication. I wanted the truth to land like a sack of bricks on their glass conference table, and they were handing me the rope. I took long walks. Listened to old voicemails from my dad. He always said never fight a knife with another knife. Use a contract. I reviewed the IP clause again while boiling pasta. Same clause. Same signature. Same power. And meanwhile, the CEO was doing interviews with business podcasts, trying to sound visionary. The CFO was working overtime, babysitting documents they didn't fully understand. The board was prepping their yachts, clueless that the core code hadn't been legally detached from the hands that built it. I went to bed early every night. Slept like a brick in a thunderstorm. Because I didn't need to break down their castle. I just needed to be standing outside when the drawbridge collapsed under their own weight. The message came in while I was microwaving leftover pad thai, watching the noodles coil like intestines in a plastic grave. Ping. One bubble. Blue. From the CTO. We hadn't talked in months. Since I walked out and he gave me that half nod in the hallway. The one that says I see you, but I can't afford to be seen with you. Now he was texting me like we were still in the trenches. You remember signing the IP rights agreement back in 14? I stared at the screen a second longer than normal. My thumb hovered, then pulled back. Did I remember? Hell yes, I remembered. I didn't just sign it. I wrote it. On my porch, in the middle of a thunderstorm, back when our startup was 6 people, 4 laptops, and 1 space heater. I'd stayed up till 3 a.m. rewording every clause, making sure the founding IP, the architecture of the entire platform, was legally tied to me until an explicit transfer was filed, notarized, and logged. I'd done it to protect the company. Back then, it was about shielding us from vulture capitalists and shady acquirers. Back then, I was the Boy Scout, the paladin with a keyboard. Never imagined I'd need that clause to shield myself. I typed back. Yeah, why? 3 dots, long pause. He was typing, deleting, typing again. Like he knew this wasn't a casual check-in. Finally, might be relevant soon. I walked away from the microwave without touching the beeping buttons. Relevant is CDO speak for. The lawyers are now in panic mode, and someone just said your name in a room full of people who don't like surprises. I sat down, opened the scanned PDF from my drive. Zoomed in on Clause 6B. No sale, license, or transfer of the core platform IP shall be valid without the original signatory's written consent. My name. No cosigner. No override clause. It was surgical. I'd forgotten how elegant it was. I texted back one word. Understood. He replied with a thumbs up. No further elaboration. We were both engineers. We didn't need flowery language to say, oh, it's about to hit the fan, isn't it? I didn't tell him I already had 3 lawyers reviewing the same doc. I didn't tell him about the version stored in my fireproof safe. Or the notarized copy I'd filed under my LLC. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window at the neighbor's busted trampoline swaying in the breeze like a ghost of broken optimism. They thought I was a footnote. A line item to streamline. But I was the linchpin. Kind you don't see until it's the last thing holding the damn bridge up. And now, the buyer's legal team was somewhere in a glass tower, flipping pages, asking a very dangerous question. Who's the signatory on this agreement? I didn't need to answer. The paper would speak loud enough. It was a Thursday morning, the kind of Ohio gray that makes your bones feel like damp insulation. I was sitting at the kitchen table in an old hoodie, nursing lukewarm coffee, and scrolling through Zillow listings I couldn't afford yet. That's when I reopened the file, not out of paranoia, out of curiosity. A little whisper of hunger, the kind that only comes when you realize you might not be screwed after all. You might be holding the detonator. Folder, founding docs final, for Sir PDF buried deep, behind taxes and resumes and a PDF of my niece's finger painting, she demanded I print. There it was, the contract, the one we'd cobbled together when the company was more ambition than actual product. I opened it. Scanned, let my eyes soak in the familiar language like it was a long-lost diary from a past life. Page 4, Section 6, Subsection B. No sale, license, or transfer of the core platform IP shall be valid without the original signatory's written consent. I reread it, then again. My name. Typed, signed, timestamped. The only name. No co-founder. No legal team override. No clause giving the board final authority. Just me in a coffee-stained hoodie, the only person on planet Earth with the legal right to say yes or no to a $330 million sale. You ever feel power slide up your spine like a warm wire? It wasn't the chest-thumping kind. Not rage. Not even revenge yet. Just heat. Awareness. I'd been treated like a barnacle on the hull, kicked off to lighten the load before docking at the IPO harbor. But turns out, I was the keel. Without me, the ship tips. I leaned back in my chair. Let out a single, stunned breath. Not a laugh. Not a gasp. Something heavier, like my nervous system was realigning itself around this new gravitational center. I opened my notebook and started jotting. Bullet points. What they thought they controlled. What I actually owned. What leverage looked like when dressed in liar-approved font. This wasn't just some safety net. This was a tripwire. One they'd all stepped over thinking it was decorative. And here's the kicker. I hadn't been vengeful when I drafted it. I'd done it out of principle. Because back then, we were idealistic. Back when the CEO still made his own coffee and didn't refer to himself in the third person on investor calls, I pulled out a fresh envelope and slid a printed copy of the contract inside. Notarized version was in the safe. This one was for quick access. One touch away from deployment. I messaged my lawyer me Clause 6B can't transfer core IP without my sign-off. Still enforceable, right? His reply came faster than I expected. Lawyer, hell yes. That clause is a brick wall. I stared at those words. Brick wall. We're about to hit it doing 90 in a Maserati made of buzzwords and stock options. And I was sipping gas station coffee like it was Bordeaux. The delicious part wasn't just the clause. It was that they had no idea yet. They were running the final lap with their shoelaces tied together, waving to cameras. And I had the scissors. I didn't text the CTO. Didn't message anyone else. No warning shots. No posturing. Circled one phrase in red marker on my printout. Original signatory's written consent. And underneath it, I wrote, let them ask. The day of the signing arrived like a tornado dressed in a tux. I was at home, still in sweatpants, cradling my chipped hash one code wizard mug like it was a holy relic. Coffee tasted slightly burnt, left on the warmer too long. Didn't matter. I was wired already. Across town, we're probably passing around espresso shots in sleek glass conference rooms, clapping each other on the back, saying things like value add and synergy, and pretending this wasn't built on the bones of unpaid overtime and dreams duct taped together with caffeine. The headlines had already gone out. Preemptive, cocky little announcements about the upcoming acquisition. Final due diligence was wrapping. Signatures being printed. Pens loaded with the ink of smug inevitability. Ping. A text. CTO. Just 3 words. They found it. No emojis. No context. My heart did a backflip. Then, buyer's lawyer just saw your name on the core IP agreement. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared at the screen like it was a slow-motion car crash I had orchestrated with nothing but foresight and a forgotten PDF. In my mind, I pictured them. The buyer's legal team in suits worth more than my car, flipping page by page. nodding along, till one hand freezes mid-turn. A sharp intake of breath. Someone leans forward. What's this? Clause 6b. My name. Solo. That's the moment their slick smiles crack. That's when the oxygen in the room changes. Because now, buried in a deal worth $250 million, is a one-man landmine no one warned them about. A signature-shaped fuse with my name on it. Back at my kitchen table, I didn't jump. Didn't gloat. Didn't pace or scream. I knew it. Like some TV courtroom drama. I just took another sip, because now it was real. This wasn't theoretical leverage. It wasn't a game of maybe. This was the goddamn linchpin of the deal, and I was holding it with jelly on my fingers and sleep in my eyes. I glanced over at my printer, already loaded with the signed hard copy. My lawyer was on standby. The safe was still locked. Everything was ready. Let him sweat. I stayed still, waiting for the next ding, the next move. Next frantic attempt to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And through the silence, I felt it. The power shift. Subtle. Electric. Beautiful. Somewhere downtown, a multi-million-dollar deal had just skidded to a halt. And they were realizing, too late, that the guy they kicked out in silence was now the one holding the gate open. Or closed, depending on how polite they planned to be. Ping. My phone buzzed again, cutting through the hum of my dishwasher. Another text from the CTO. CEO is stress vomiting into a ficus tree. Call me. I stared at it for solid 10 seconds. Long enough to picture it in vivid HD. His press suit splattered, face blotchy, one hand clutching the planter like it was a lifeline, while bubbling over company-branded stationery. The image was absurd, beautiful, poetic. I didn't call. I opened my contacts and tapped a different name. Morning, my lawyer answered, voice crisp like he'd been waiting. Saw the clause, I said. You want to make them beg now or after lunch? I smiled. Let's see what kind of groveling budget they're working with. Across town, panic was crawling up the walls of that conference room like mold. The buyer's team would have hit the brakes hard. No pen hitting paper while the IP rights were in limbo. And the CEO? He'd be scrambling, mouth dry, realizing that somewhere between streamlining the cap table and stabbing me in the back, failed to erase the one line that mattered. Clause 6b. Still alive, still mine, still biting. My lawyer was already drafting the acknowledgement of control doc. Fancy legal speak for if they want to breathe near my code, they better come bearing gold bars in a very polite tone. You want me to call their legal team? He asked. No, I said slowly. Let them come to us. Let them stew in it. Because here's the thing. When you've got leverage this pure, this clean, it's devastating, you don't chase. You wait. You let the silence fill the room like smoke. You let the buyer's lawyer whisper things like material breach and misrepresentation of ownership. You let the investors shift in their seats. And the CFO pretend she doesn't hear the word fraud floating in the air like a bad perfume. I pulled up Zillow again, this time sorting by lakefront. 8 figures were coming. I didn't know the final shape of the deal yet, but I knew the number wouldn't start with anything lower than a 1 and 2 commas. My phone buzzed once more. Can we talk? This is spiraling fast. The CTO again, no mention of the ficus this time. I muted the thread. Not out of cruelty, just strategy. I needed him sweating, not soothed. Because for years, I'd been the guy who made things work, who patched the duct tape, who stayed late, fixed the back end, smoothed egos, kept the whole goddamn circus from catching fire. And they took that and traded it for stock options and fluff interviews and a CEO who once asked me if HTML was still a thing. So now I sat in my modest kitchen with mismatched mugs and a crooked clock, sipping lukewarm coffee like it was Victory champagne. Let him dry heave into office foliage. Let him spin their wheels. The trap was clean, legal, undeniable. I was in no rush to offer the antidote. The call came in at 2:47 p.m., block number, which meant one thing, buyer's legal. Not company legal, not oops we goofed legal, but real legal. The kind with suits tailored tighter than their NDAs and voices that don't shake, even when entire deals are burning down behind them. I let it ring twice, then picked up like I had all the time in the world. Speaking, I said, as if I didn't know exactly who it was. Mr. Reynolds, this is Martin Liss from Wilkes & Hayes, representing the acquiring firm. We'd like to clarify a few things regarding the IP rights agreement associated with the platform technology. Ah, clarify. Legalese for, your name just shut down $250 million acquisition and half the board looks like they just saw the ghost of Sarbanes-Oxley. I didn't gloat. Just said, of course. I'm happy to help. Started slow, confirming details, asking politely loaded questions like to your knowledge, has this agreement ever been superseded? And are you in possession of the original copy? I gave him clean, surgical answers. No drama, no threats. Just the truth, which in this case, was more brutal than any tantrum. Yes, I wrote the agreement. Yes, I'm the sole signatory. No, it was never nullified. Yes, still retain full veto rights on the sale of core platform IP. A pause, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. Then he asked, Would you be open to resolving this amicably? There it was. The white flag? I would, I said, calm as a monk, but my consent comes at a price. Another pause, his tone tightened slightly. Go on. I want what I was originally entitled to, my equity. Full payout as if I were still on the cap table at time of sale. He cleared his throat. I see. Plus interest, I added. Adjusted from the date of my termination and a formal release, clearing me of any alleged breach under the NDA. I want the record clean. That was the moment the dynamic flipped, not a negotiation, a correction. I wasn't clawing my way back in. I was charging a toll at the gate. They tried to bolt behind me. He didn't argue, just asked for my lawyer's info. Already looped in, I said, hoarding the contact before the words left his mouth. Within the hour, my attorney had a draft agreement in hand. Standard language, minor posturing, but the numbers, oh, the numbers. Not only did they offer my full equity compensation, they boosted it slightly, probably to sweeten the optics like it was their idea all along. We rounded up for inflation and added a zero to the end of the interest line for good measure. And the best part, closed the deal without even looping in the CEO. He found out afterward when the wire transfer cleared and someone from buyer side called to thank him for being so flexible about renegotiating the IP clause. He must have turned whiter than printer paper, probably clutched his desk like it owed him rent. Because in the end, the man who fired me to streamline the cap table had to watch me get paid outside the table, the people who actually read the paperwork. I didn't need his apology. I had the contract. I had the leverage. And now I had the money. The money hit my account on a Tuesday morning. 8 figures, neatly packaged, US currency, no emoji, just a quiet ping from the bank app that felt more like a war drum. I stared at it for a full minute, not blinking, just letting the numbers sear into my retinas like the world's most beautiful burn. I closed the app, shut my laptop and bought a lake house. Cash, 3 bedrooms, private dock, cedar paneling, and a view that made my bloodstream slow to a crawl. The kind of place that doesn't scream success, it whispers it while pouring a second glass of wine. No moving trucks, just me, a duffel bag, and a bottle of Cabernet I'd been saving since the year. We shipped version 1.0 of the platform they tried to sell out from under me. The next day, it was broke. Deal finalized. Buyer acquires SaaS giant for $330 million with undisclosed amendments. Undisclosed amendments. That was me. That was the clause. That was the quiet knife I pressed into the underbelly of their perfect little photo op. I didn't call anyone. Didn't post a victory lap on LinkedIn. Didn't subtweet. I just sat on the dock, barefoot, glass in hand, watching the ripples in the water like they were graphs, only I knew how to read. Round sunset, my phone buzzed. One new message. The CTO. FICA is dead. CEO looks worse. I snorted into my wine, didn't even bother replying. Just held the phone up to the sky for a second like a toast and set it back down. The wind shifted. Light breeze across the lake, cool enough to raise goosebumps. Funny thing about revenge, people expect it to come loud. With fire and lawsuits and table-flipping drama. But the real kind? The good kind. It's quiet. It's the sound of the deal going through because you allowed it. It's the silence from a man who thought he'd buried you, now choking on his own contracts. It's the lake, the breeze, the moment you realize you don't owe anybody anything, not an explanation, not an apology, not a goddamn crumb. I leaned back, let the last light settle on my face and took another sip. Turns out, the cleanest revenge isn't saying I told you so. It's not saying anything at all.